what they're thinking about, what they're focusing on, what their goal is in that day, should all be for God subhanahu wa ta'ala. And therefore, the more pious of people you see, that they show in their lifestyle, the way that they live their lives, they show Tawheed. We talked about the second part of an Islamic lifestyle, thank you, and that is wilayat of the Prophet and his family. That a believer cannot hide his love for Imam Hussein alayhi salam. A believer, a true follower of the Holy Prophet and his family is always thinking about Imam Hussein, always thinking about Imam Mahdi. You've heard that maybe in our majalis, many times we do أَمَّنْ يُجِيبُ الْمُضْطَرَّ إِذَا دَعَى وَيَكْشُفُ السُّوءَ. We say this, right? And who is going to respond to the distressed and remove this God who is God? He is the God who is going to respond to the distressed and remove his grief. In the tafsir of this verse, it is actually, this verse is related to Imam al-Zaman. He is the Muhtar. We say this tabarrukan when we have dua that want to be answered, when we have sick that need to be healed, we say this. But the real Muhtar is Imam al-Zaman. And the narration says when the advent happens, when the dhuhur happens, and he comes to Maqam Ibrahim Ajjallahu Ta'ala Farajahu Sharif, and there he makes the dua, there he is the Muhtar, and there he makes dua, and Allah answers his prayer with the dhuhur and the perfect government. So when wilayat, the second component of the belief of a true mu'min is wilayat, he is thinking of Imam Hussein when he's driving in his car. He is crying for Imam Hussein, listening to Lutmiya of Imam Hussein, for example. Reciting Ziyarat Ashura, which we just did. As we can, we do ziyarat and salam to Imam Hussein. But at the same time, that person, his lifestyle is Mahdawi. They're remembering the Imam of the age. They themselves become Muhtar. Imam al-Zaman is Muhtar. Imam al-Zaman is distressed. But the key component in the life of a believer is that they are distressed for Imam al-Zaman. They don't know what to do. They're just waiting. Their life, their love is for the holy Imam. This is a key component. They can't hide this part from the walaya, this walaya component in their lifestyle. That all they think about is, what can I do to bring the Imam back? You know, Khaja Nasir ad-Din al-Tusi, great scholar. It's actually here we had one of the tests. I don't know, the youth remember, who was the father of trigonometry. That was one of the tests here. Maybe remember it so next time you can raise a prize, because sometimes we repeat the questions. I don't know. So the father of trigonometry, everyone here studied trigonometry, right? Is part of the curriculum, trigonometry. So the father of it is Khaja Nasir ad-Din al-Tusi, they say. And he has these, a beautiful statement about Imam Zaman. He says, غَيْبَتُهُ لَوُجُودُهُ لُطْفٌ, that the existence of the Imam is lutf. The fact that the Imam is existing and he is living, it is a lutf, is a grace of God. Just the fact, because if it wasn't for the Imam of the age, what would happen to the earth? It would crumble. So وجوده لطف وتصرفه لطف آخر, and his tasarruf over the world. What does tasarruf mean? His dominion over the world. His wilayat over the world. With the permission of God, he has wilayat over the world, right? All the prophets, the imams, they had this. Imam Ali alayhi salam had wilayat. The Prophet had wilayat. If Allah willed, and they willed, they could change things in this world. So وَتَصَرُّفُهُ لُطْفٌ آخر, the fact that the Imam Mahdi, has power over this world is another lutf. But then we say this, then he says, وَغَيْبَتُهُ عَنَّا. But don't think that his power is going to cause his dhuhur. Because if Imam Allah wanted and just relied on the power of Imam Zaman, then he would have done it for Imam Ali alayhi salam. Imam Ali would have used his wilayat to gain power and would have been the leader of the Muslims right after the Prophet. But Allah wanted the people to participate actively in the government of Imam Ali alayhi salam. And Allah in the same way wants people to participate actively in the coming of Imam Zaman. So how beautifully he says, this is my understanding from it. It might be wrong. From his statement is وَوُجُودُهُ لُطْفٌ وَتَصَرُّفُهُ لُطْفٌ آخر. Imam Zaman has power. But Allah doesn't want him to use that power because He wants people by their own free will, by their own what they want, to be able to establish the government by themselves. So therefore you see that if we take this idea of being muntadir for Imam al-Zaman, we see that actually we're very responsible. And that person is muttar, meaning that he is suffering, he is distressed when he is in the ghaiba. He's as if he's not living life. And are we truly living life without Imam al-Zaman? How much more would you benefit if the Imam was in front of you? If you were being able to speak to him? If you could ask questions and ask for his guidance? Something as simple as this, say, I want to get married. Is this person good for me or not? What do you think? Would the Imam not tell you? Would the Imam not guide you? How much are we suffering in this world because we are realizing the fact that the Imam is separate from us and that we're living a life without the Imam and we're used to it. So I don't know here anybody had a pain that they got used to. What happens when they have a pain that they got used to? They just don't do anything after more. Ghaibat for us has become a pain that we've become accustomed to. But what I'm telling you, brother and sister, is to become muttar for Imam Zaman. Be distressed for him. Work for him. The Imam, if we're saying his advent is by the people, then what does that mean? It means that the followers of Ahlul Bayt have to prepare themselves for the Imam. It means that the followers of Ahlul Bayt have to have economic power. They have to have defensive power. They have to have strategy. They have to have education. They have to have influence in order to defend the Imam, because the defense is with the people. He has walayat, he has dominion. But so did Imam Ali, so did Imam Hassan, so did Imam Hussein alayhi salam. He has help from the unseen. He has imdad al-ghaib that the Prophet had. But the Prophet relied on the people to support him. He relied on the money of Khadijah and the sword of Ali ibn Abi Talib. If Allah wanted to just enforce everyone to follow the Imams and Prophets, He would have done it from the beginning. But how many prophets do we have that years and years and years, for example, Prophet Lut, he was in a city that was committing a terrible sin. He lived there with his family for 30 years, trying to help them to change their path. Even when he would have guests, he would have to hide them so that they would not try to seek his guests. Until you see the mercy of Allah is in a way that He wants people to have a chance. He wants people to be able to follow the prophets themselves. So therefore we see one of the key components of the lifestyle of a believer is walayat. They're Husayni at the same time, they're Mahdawi. They study for Imam Zaman. They study so they can have a good degree, they can have a good position, and they can help the Imam of the age. How much of a difference is this? They go to work. They go to work to get a skill, so that skill that they're being trained is for the Imam. Every day that they go to work, they say, I'm going to help the Imam in this. These are two key components of a Muslim's lifestyle. The rest, we said, ubudiyat, being a slave of God, a servant of God. We said that another key component was living an intellectual lifestyle, basing your life off the aql. And tonight's discussion is that another key component of a Muslim's lifestyle is iffa and haya. Haya means shame. Iffa means chastity. Okay, two different things, but related. Haya means this: I'm shamed, I'm bashful in a way. If I want to do this, for example, you meet a great scholar, Ayatollah al-Ulama, and you have haya, like your feet, you don't extend it, you bring your feet like this. And or you say, you sit in front of them in a very respectful manner. That's called haya. Or in front of your parents, you have haya. You don't joke as much as you joke with your friends. This is called haya. Or when it comes to society, the way you dress, the way that you speak, you have haya, you have shame. Would you agree with me today that one of the big problems that we have is that people have lost their haya, their shame? They're not shameful about anything. Many of the clothes that today is very common for unbelieving women to wear, very common, they would bring it out, and I would see interviews. Where'd you wear this clothes? They say, no way. How? That is, in a way that's disgusting, they would say. 50 years ago, 60 years ago. Now today that same disgusting is normal and is, all over, you can say internet and all over, society. Shame has been lost. Allah says, or we have a tradition actually. Hadith from Al-Kafi. إذا أراد الله عز وجل هلاك عبد نزع منه الحياة. When Allah wants to destroy an abd, when Allah wants to destroy a person, He takes away their haya from them. Takes away their shame. They're shameless. They don't care. Nothing bothers them in front of people. We're going to talk about this. Is this hypocrisy sometimes? That when someone sees a hajjara, for example, they cover their hair a little bit more, or they become like, is that hypocrisy? No, we're going to talk about that. That's actually part of shame. Because we have in the traditions, whoever does not have shame with the people does not have shame with God. It's actually good. It's actually good. What would be bad would be to see, for example, a religious figure and to be indifferent and to just live your life how you normally live. You shouldn't have that shame, for example. Not me, I'm a student, but in front of a scholar. فَإِذَا نَزَعَ مِنْهُ الْحَيَاء. So therefore we see, if Allah wants to destroy someone, He therefore takes away their haya. Al-haya khayrun kullu ya'ni annahu yakuffu dha din wa man la dina la. Haya, all of it is good. If somebody has religion or doesn't have religion, it's good for them. Because these things, it's not things you have to read in the book. How do I have haya necessarily? A lot of it comes with your common sense. A lot of it comes with how your parents bring you up. A lot of it has to do with your mannerisms. People know when they dress indecently, they know that this is wrong. It's not something that you have to, or when they speak vulgarly to somebody, or they act in a way that they have no shame, people know this. It's not something they have to necessarily read in the book. Yes, the instructions of Islam point us to the direction to maximize haya. But to be bashful, to have shame, this is something that comes from that person from within. So therefore we see very beautifully, I want to share, maybe I'll get out of you, I'll squeeze out of you first a salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa Muhammad. Remember, Shahr Ramadan is coming. One of the narrations say one of the strongest, heaviest things in the scale of Mizan. If you want your scale in the Day of Judgment to be heavy with good deeds, recite Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. In Kaf'ami, in Misbah, brings the narration from dua of Imam al-Zaman. Dua, what did he make dua for? These few things. And actually, because it relates to all of us, I'm going to mention it in that part that relates to haya. Imam Zaman attributed to him, Ajjallahu ta'ala farajahu sharif, has dua that wa ala mashayikhana bil waqar was sakina. He makes dua for the old, the sheikh. Sheikh in Arabic doesn't mean shuyukh like a scholar. Sheikh in Arabic also means an older person. An old person is also a sheikh. It has different meanings. Today, even someone that say has a lot of oil, they might say someone he's a sheikh, for example. But in general, you say an old person or someone that has no zaman attributed to him makes dua that the old people have waqar, have presence. Old people, they're not like light. They're not in a way that when they walk, in a way that when you see them, you see, this is an old person. He has such presence. You're shameful in front of him. You're respectful in front of them. So he asks that the people are respected. The old people have bil waqar was sakina, and they have tranquility. Very good for old people to have qualities. What qualities should the shabab have? Wa ala shabab, according to this dua, bil inaba wa tawbah. Inaba means to turn back. That young person, Imam of the age, says if you make a mistake, young person, it's okay. Stand back up. If you make a mistake, it's not the end of the world. You're young. Come back to God. Come back to the Prophet. Come back to Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. You have inaba. You have this quality that you turn back very fast. Okay, that happened. It was a mistake. I'm not going to talk about it. I'm going to do repentance and istighfar and move forward. And what tawbah and repentance. Wa ala nisa, specifically though, the dua of the Imam of the age is for women to have haya, to have modesty, and wal iffa, chastity, to protect themselves. Chastity. Very specific because they are the ones that will be able to bring the future generation, and they'll be able to send that chastity and modesty for their son and child. That is pure. A mother that has protected herself from all sin. وَعَلَى الْأَغْنِيَاءِ بِالتَّوَاضُعِ وَالسَّعَةِ. The Imam says, but for the rich, they might have a problem. They might be arrogant. Give them humbleness. Give the rich humbleness, something that, unfortunately, what we see in social media today, the rich do not have humbleness. Many of them talk about how many cars they have and how many, the way that they travel different places. To have tawadu, to have humbleness, was-sa'a, and to be very generous and to give to others. وَعَلَى الْفُقَرَاءِ بِالصَّبْرِ وَالْقَنَاءِ, and the poor to be able to have patience and contentment. وَعَلَى الْغُزَّاءِ, which are the fighters, بِالنَّصْرِ وَالْغَلَبَةِ, to have victory and for them to overcome the enemy. So therefore we see that a key, crucial part of society is that society should have shame. Society should have haya. When you are around older people, our teacher, Sheikh Ahmad al-Mujtahidi, would say this all the time. Don't joke all the time with older people. Let them have waqar, let them have presence. Okay, you want to be funny, it's fine, but remember, not with your own peers, you treat them in the same way. You give them respect. You respect and seek the advice of the old people in our community. So what are the consequences of lack of modesty? What happens to a group of people that there is no more modesty? The Prophet of Islam narrates, إِذَا لَمْ تَسْتَحِي فَاسْنَعْ مَا شِئْتَ. How important it is in uyun al-akhbar. If you do not have shame, do whatever you want. If you don't have shame, you're free. Because if you're going to be a religious person, if you're going to be a good person, the first step is to have modesty, to be bashful in the correct places. من لم يستحي من الناس لم يستحي من الله سبحانه. Imam Ali Islam Quran says, if a person does not have haya in front of the people, he's shameless, he does whatever he wants, exposes whatever he wants, how is he going to have shame when he comes to God? So it relates. So when we look at the stages and the different parts, Imam Ali alayhi salam, when he was advising Malik in his letter 53 in Nahj al-Balagha, and he told the people how you want to choose people when you become the governor, how can you get the help of the people. He advised them to have two qualities, and this can also go for those that here are employers and they want to employ others, or managers. What kind of people should work for you? The two qualities were this. One, there should be ahlu tajraba. They should have experience. They should know what they're doing. You don't bring someone, for example, Say the roof of the masjid wants to be repaired. He asks you, so how do you do it? I don't know, this is my first time I've been doing it. Is it this way? And they're asking you. You don't hire such a person. You hire someone, alhamdulillah, that, for example, has experience, has done this many times. So this is my 30th, for example, roof that I fixed. One thing, tajruba. And the narrations also mention that this is the best type of knowledge. It's not just that college knowledge that you have at school and university. It's actually applying those knowledge, that experience that you gain. And the second that Imam Ali alayhi salam mentions them, haya. Look and employ people that have haya, that have shame in the correct places, that are modest in the correct places. Hire them. Hire them. You ever see sometimes you bring someone to your house and you want to replace them, they're always looking at everything like this and how big is this house, okay. Or some guy comes and he has shame. He says, okay, this is someone's house, I'm the plumber, I'm going to fix it and go. I don't talk to anybody here, I'm going to do my job. I look down, I have shame, I do it, and I leave. Hire those kind of people, those that have shame. But haya has different parts. This first stage is haya in our body parts. Haya in the eyes, haya in the stomach, for example. When you look at some of the narrations, and this narration is actually from, we see, Inna Allah awha ila Dawood, an yas'al Sulaiman an arba ashara kalamatin. To ask, Dawood should ask Sulaiman 14 things. And from this quiz test that Prophet Dawood asked his son Sulaiman, one of them he asked was this: where is the place, Ya bunayya, ayna mawdi' al-haya? Ayna mawdi' al-haya? And then he says, Qala al-aynan, or aynan, the two eyes. Aynan are the two eyes. The place of haya is the two eyes. The first step of haya is the body parts. I'm careful of what I look at. I'm careful of what I hear. I'm careful of where I go. The second part is haya in speech. Some people are not careful how they talk. So a Muslim's lifestyle is a way that they have adab, they have mannerisms. Sometimes our ulama, they would visit them, like Ayatollah Burujerdi, when he would say, Sabahkumullah, Sabahkum, to everyone. He would greet everyone. They would ask him a question. He would put his finger there to remember that he stopped there and answered the question, and then continue, Sabahkumullah, 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 to greet everyone, for example. Right? Because to have mannerisms, to speak well to people, not to hurt their feelings. Joking is good, but not if it's at the expense of someone. Muslims should live in a way that they are careful of how they speak to others, how they treat others. We have in the narration, when you speak good to someone, يُثْرِ الْمَالْ وَيُمْنِ الرِّزْقِ. Your money, you'll have more richness, you have more money, you have more rizq, more provisions from God when you speak good to people. وَيُنْسِ فِي الْأَجَلِ. You'll live longer. You'll live longer because people are doing dua for him. He's such a good person. He never harmed me. He never said anything to me. They make dua for him. وَيُحَبِّبْ إِلَى الْأَهْلِ وَيَدْخُلِ الْجَنَّةِ. The last thing, the third thing is haya when it comes to our behavior. I gave this example before, possibly here as well. You see in the story of Prophet Musa alayhi salam and Prophet Shu'aib in the Quran, that you see that the way that the two daughters of Prophet Shu'aib approached Prophet Musa alayhi salam. Prophet Musa alayhi salam went and helped them because they wanted to give water, say for example, to their animals. And it was a place that was all full of men. So Prophet Musa alayhi salam helped these two daughters of a prophet, and they wanted to invite him because they told their father, they wanted to invite them to their house. So one of them came, and the way that they walked and came, جاءت إحداهما تمشي على الاستحياء. She walked with istihya, with humility, with humbleness, with modesty. Even walking, the Quran says, you can walk in a place that is modest because she's going to approach another man that's not mahram. She came and approached him, the daughter. Why? Because she's the daughter of Shu'aib. We wouldn't expect less. She comes and approaches Prophet Musa alayhi salam with istihya. And you know the rest of the story, most likely here. When Prophet Musa goes to follow them, because it was windy, some say, some of the Mufassirin say it was windy, he did not want to see the physical shape of their body, he went forward. He went forward first, even though he didn't have directions, and obviously there's no GPS or Google Maps or at that time. So therefore, he waited for them to throw stones to make a right turn or left turn. And therefore, he didn't know the direction, but they led the direction with stones, so he would not see their body, even though it's covered, just with the wind. So two examples of haya in the Quran or in these stories with hadith. One of them is the way she walked. She came with istihya. However, and people know this is the lisan of the people. People know the way a woman walks. There's a way you can walk with haya and a way you can walk without haya even. The Quran is teaching us this. Then we see that another last, I don't want to take too much of your time right now, but the last thing we'll talk about is this, in this topic, is some people have this, or maybe two other things. Some people have this idea that, look, if I am shy in front of someone, if I'm bashful, if I'm modest in front of someone, more than other places, then I'm just being a hypocrite. Is this true? Do you think that when it comes to, say, religious places, religious people, places of sanctity, for example, that if you show more modesty, that you're a hypocrite now? For example, they say, now again, I'm a student, but they see a scholar, and they see him, and they're a little bit more careful about the hair here, for example, or the way they go like this. Is that being a hypocrite, for example? Or it's a brother, he's a little bit more careful about, maybe he makes his assalamu alaikum a little bit, more ulama'i or something. He gets a little bit more in the mood. That's not hypocrisy. That's respecting knowledge. That's respecting that scholar. That's respecting, things that are, for us, have sanctity in religion. Just like you would go to the masjid, you're a little bit more careful. You feel different in the masjid, or you go to the shrine. You feel you have more haya, and you should be. You should be more careful in places that have more sanctity. But yes, a person can easily have hypocrisy. Yes, if a person is in a way their intention, it goes back to that niyyah. Is that niyyah that they feel kind of, ashamed, bashful because of the mannerisms they have? Or is it they're trying to trick people and fool them to make them think they're religious? Most people, obviously, it's not like that. They have haya, they have shame. It's just hard for them, for example, because they see somebody or in that place, they give more, they're more cautious, you could say. But if a person, yes, in front of the believers is one way, and with the non-believers is another way, that's a hypocrite. So there's a fine line with that intention that we have with haya. And most times with, people in this center, in this masjid, you see that when they see places that deserve reverence, places that deserve more respect, they give more. Because if you don't, then you don't have haya. Then you're bringing the status of that person down, or bringing the status of that place down. You're bringing this, for example, even when it comes to our salat, for example, we have haya. We'll talk about this. The last stage of haya is having haya when it comes to God. When you're in salat with Him, if you are going to do something that in a way that you are not really doing humility towards God, then you can say that's not having haya towards God. That's not being shameful when it comes to God. You should have in a way that I'm speaking to God. I want Him to, I'm telling myself this, I want Him to understand that I'm giving Him my full attention. I'm thinking about Him. I'm connecting to Him. I'm submitting to Him. That's a type of haya. But if I just do salat like this without any type of humbleness, with any type of khushu', salat al-khashi'in, then that's not a salat that has haya. A few other things I'm going to mention about this topic. One is this. A lot of times, there's over excessive haya, and we have to be careful. Especially with the youth. We teach them, be careful, don't say this there. Be careful, don't be bi'adab, have mannerisms. And then that child is afraid to talk. That child is afraid to act. And then later on, when it comes and they're growing up in society, you ask them to give a public speech. They're afraid. To share your opinion, because you've always told them in the gatherings, be quiet, don't say that, it's wrong. You might reveal one of our secrets in the family or something like that. We don't want you to talk. You're not careful. You keep putting him down and telling him to have haya. Then he gets confused and he won't be able to present in front of others. He won't be able to share his ideas. So haya has limitations. There's haya that in the narration says, haya that comes from jahl. It's called haya al-humq. There's haya al-humq and there's haya al-aql. Have that haya that's of the aql. Aql says this person, this place should deserves respect. Not haya of humq, that you treat your children in a way to always tell them to shut up or be quiet or not to speak. And therefore you'll see when it comes to the business world, when it comes for them working and having a career, for example, a boy, a man, he should be able to be, social with people, to talk with them, not to be afraid of them. How you're going to work at your job, for example, you're a salesman, you're always timid and shy, and you don't know how to close a deal because you have too much shame. But this is your job, for example, or your profession, you're a doctor, for example. If you have too much haya and you don't know what to do here, you can't be able to cure them, for example, or help them. Or if you're a lawyer and you want to speak in the court, you have to be able not to have that haya to be able to restrict you. So that's why in the narration it has this, al-haya yamna'ur rizq. For example, it increases sustenance, but that haya that is not good is that haya that man istahya min qawl al-haq fahuwa ahmaq, the narration says. That haya, when it comes to speaking about the truth, means the haya for doing what is right, that's a person being an idiot. Being an ahmaq, the narration says. So there's a balance when it comes to being shameful. And one of the, as Muslims living in the West, is that sometimes we teach our kids to be too reserved, and when they should be, coming to school and coming to work as very confident people, telling them, look, I'm Muslim, this is my time to pray right now. They tell who they work for or at their school, I'm Muslim, this is my life. And it makes things so much more easier when you put that shyness away. But if you're going to be shy all the time and secretive about your religion, then there's many times where you're not going to have that confidence that's needed, and you might end up in doing something that is haram. You might miss your salat. You should not have haya when it comes to those things. So when it comes to having haya, when it's about speaking the truth, doing what's right, there we put that haya alone. As they say also, when it comes to leading people, guiding people, and helping them out, at the same time, putting that bad type of haya away and teaching our children to be very active, because that and the waiter of Imam al-Zaman should be. He should be influencing the world and preparing the world for the advent of Imam al-Zaman, ajjallahu ta'ala faraja. I apologize for taking your time. Inshallah, keep us in your dua this Shahr Ramadan. As we said, Wednesday night most likely will be the moon sighting. Wednesday night will be the first night of Shahr Ramadan, because the Arabic month starts at nighttime. And then the first will be Thursday, inshallah. You'll keep us in your dua. And do we have time for questions? Of course we do. And let's give a salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.